morning, good afternoon, good evening. The picture I have on the screen there, that is Tanzania. It is disappointing to note that chaos has once again broken out during elections. According to that report, the young people in Tanzania are rioting in protest against what the incumbent president has done. She has apparently jailed all her political opponents and disqualified others. One purpose and one purpose only: to enhance the chances of winning those elections. Somebody's asked me, why is it that many African countries, decades after independence, they're still failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections? I think that is a very good question, and one which we in Zimbabwe should really sit down and reflect upon. Because ever since our independence in 1980, Zimbabwe has failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. I think the short answer to why that is so is that when Robert Mugabe and his Zanu PF cronies were part of the ordinary black masses, the oppressed, denied a meaningful say in the governance of the country, they took up that cause. But if the truth be told, they were only paying lip service to freedom, justice, and human dignity for all. Because as soon as they got into a position of power, they became the next oppressors. That has been the weakness in most of these African countries. Whoever gets into power forget about all the rhetoric about fighting to end oppression and exploitation, and they become the next oppressors. Because their default position is to dominate or be dominated. Whereas for you to carry through that commitment to freedom, justice for all, you really have to have a different mentality. You have to embrace the idea that you must do to others as you want them to do unto you. And that has proven to be a bridge too far for most of our leaders. As soon as they get into power, they get a taste of power, they forget about others' rights, others' freedom, justice. All they can think about is consolidating their hold on power and building their own nest while they are in power. It was interesting. It's interesting to note that in 2023, Zimbabwe had its elections, and they were once again marred by blatant vote rigging. All the election observers of note, including our own regional election team, SADC, and the continental one, the AU, condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. Has that changed anything? No, it hasn't. If anything at all, Mnangagwa dismissed their reports with his usual arrogance. Ndezvavo, he said. Here is Mnangagwa boasting on that very issue.
Kana vakatuka Zanu PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidza nekuchikanganisa. Ukavona vachiti Zanu PF yakaipa farai. You are doing correct things for your country. Homu takaita elections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelection anafamba zvakanaka. Ndezvavo.
The truth of the matter is, the failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections is the number one issue to all Zimbabweans. Because that is the reason why Zimbabwe is a failed state. It is interesting that on Tuesday, Mnangagwa was giving his State of the Nation address. And one of the things he was boasting about is this trabablas, traffic interchange. What the people of Zimbabwe should realize is that that interchange was built by a fraction of what the nation is losing in the wholesale looting that is going on. In 2023, the Al Jazeera documentary Gold Mafia showed that Zimbabwe was losing as much as 80% of its US $2 billion gold mining activity every year. 80% of 2 billion. That's 1.6 billion in looted gold alone. How many trabablas, traffic interchange, would that money have built by now? And the looting is not only confined to gold. We know that the same thing is happening with diamonds, lithium, platinum, and many other resources and opportunities. But the people of Zimbabwe cannot protest that and do the ultimate thing that a healthy and functioning democracy would do: remove the Zanu PF regime from office for failing to account for so many billions of dollars, because Zanu PF rigs the elections. The looting of the nation's resources have made Mnangagwa and his looters, Shkananda, as they're popularly known in the country now, incredibly rich and politically very powerful. Ending the Zanu PF dictatorship is never going to be a walk in the park. That is the truth. And yet, if we are serious about ending the country's economic meltdown and political paralysis, we have to end the dictatorship. We have to embrace the idea that no one has the divine right to rule the country. Legitimacy should only come from the people in a free, fair, and credible election. This whole idea of rigging elections is the very antithesis of that. The right to free, fair, and credible election is more than a right. It is the essence of good governance. It is the essence of a politically stable nation. After 45 years of this chaos and grinding poverty, many African countries can do with finally addressing this problem of rigged elections and bad governance. Because until we do, our countries are going nowhere. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and many other African countries who have been caught up in this endless cycle of yesterday's liberators becoming today's oppressors. We need to end the madness. We can end it. In Zimbabwe, we can end it. We had the opportunity to end it during the GNU. We wasted that opportunity. We had many other opportunities along the way. And in 2023, the opportunity to end it was simple. Deny Zanu PF political legitimacy. SADC and the AU condemned the Zimbabwe elections as flawed and illegal. But they could not go the extra mile and deny Zanu PF legitimacy because Chamisa and his friends, Triple C friends, had conned the people to participate in those flawed elections in their millions. You've been warned so many times. If you participate, you have got to accept the consequences. You are giving the process credibility. So why are you keeping on participating in a flawed process? Because you believe idiotic lies like Chamisa's, I've plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. How many times does he have to lie to you before the penny finally drops that he's lying? In his State of the Nation address, Mnangagwa did not say anything about implementing the democratic reforms to make sure the 2028 elections are free, fair, and credible. When he said those who are saying the elections were rigged, Ndezvavo, he meant it. As far as he's concerned, the 2023 elections were free, fair, and credible. There is absolutely no democratic reforms to be implemented. Indeed, he's pushing an alternative agenda right now to extend his stay in power beyond 2028. I believe that agenda is more of a distraction because he doesn't want people to focus on the issue of the failure to implement reforms. On the issue of extending his stay in power, he can argue that he's doing well and some of the people really want him to stay on. He's got an argument there. But if we were to force him to justify why he's failing to implement even one token reform to make sure that the elections are free, fair, and credible, he has nothing to say. Because after 45 years of rigged elections which have been condemned even by our own regional body, SADC, and the continental body, AU, election observers, he knows he cannot win that argument. So in this case, it's a matter of we, the people, being careful that we pick the battle we really want, the front which we want to fight him on. To fight him on the issue of whether or not he can extend his stay in power by 2 years is irrelevant, in fact, because we are not guaranteed of winning to start with. And most significantly, even if he did win, if we maintained our position and told him in no uncertain terms, the real fight we want is that 2028 elections must be free, fair, and credible. If people were to stick to their guns and refuse to give him legitimacy by failing to participate in those flawed elections in the usual millions, SADC will deny Zanu PF legitimacy. Even if Parliament and Zanu PF have endorsed that he should stay on until 2030. If Zimbabwe is forced to go into a second GNU in 2028, the new GNU will never accept Mnangagwa as president just because the dysfunctional Zanu PF regime passed the resolution that he should stay on. Our biggest problem in Zimbabwe is our failure to pick, to understand what is going on and pick the fight we have a chance of winning. The fact that MDC leaders have failed to implement even one token reform in 25 years, including the 5 years in the GNU, does not mean we do not need the reforms anymore. or that no one else can implement those reforms. Our problem is we have been easily conned by Chamisa and company to do what Chamisa and company want us to do. That has been our weakness. It is, of course, a great shame that 45 years after independence, we are still failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections. And if we allow Chamisa to have his way, in 2028, he will con millions to participate, give Zanu PF legitimacy, and we'll be saying 48 years after independence, and we still cannot hold free, fair, and credible elections. Of course, it is something to be ashamed of. We can end this madness. We just need to put on our thinking cap on and not allow ourselves to be so easily conned by the likes of Chamisa to do stupid things like participating in a flawed electoral process only to give Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuate our own suffering. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.